The South Carolina 7 expedition came to Georgetown on a dreary Tuesday, May 14, 2024. The SC7 is an effort to spread an environmental and cultural awareness to our rich natural resources that makes this state unique. They've been traveling from the mountains to the sea in a journey that encourages citizens to join in along the way. We had a walk around this historic city planned. However, due to the weather, a discussion in the courthouse was had instead.
All right, there's the courthouse. This is where it is set to begin.
Oh man, yeah.
And usually Saturday we have it down, and his flagpole is a big branch.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, what you're doing.
So it's like I said, we're just trying to get people out.
We started SC7 in response to the governor's interest in getting the Floodwater Commission report out. He had asked me to help create it and share it. We did a 405-page report, and he didn't want it sitting on file cabinet somewhere because most of what we talked about was natural resiliency strategies to deal with if you're interested. And this notion of the SC7 came about. That was in November and January. My son and I decided we wanted to climb Mount Everest in Nepal when there was no line. We talked about this, I think. And if you want to go to the Himalayas when there's no line, go in January. Or you can go stand in your freezer. Either way, get the same experience. And we decided that we would try to create an expedition in South Carolina and also gave us an opportunity to talk about the report. So we took the Palmetto Trail and we bookended it with two of the last great 50 places on Earth. South Carolina is the only place that has two: the Jocassee Gorge in the mountains in Appalachia and the Ace Basin. And we did this expedition using the Palmetto Trail for the first couple of years of the Liberty Trail to talk about the military. Handful of us, and to be honest with you, most people just thought we were freaks. It was July, it's hot, some old guy, bald-headed fellow walking around. But people began to buy into this idea that we'll talk about some of the economic advantages, healthcare, et cetera. Last year, our fourth year, we had embedded media the entire time, and we had a market study done, media market, and more than 16.5 million people followed us last year from coast to coast. And a lot of that wasn't just print media. It was because we had TV with us, and those were being picked up in channels around the country. So we realized we've tapped into something, and not only in South Carolina, but around the country. Most importantly, what we tapped into is teaching South Carolinians about South Carolina. Because what we have found is that most people have no idea. And in my opinion, Georgetown is another one of those amazing diamonds in the crown of South Carolina, the Palmetto State. I love it. I used to teach here, by the way. I'm on the faculty at Coastal, and they're on Front Street. I don't know if it's still there, but I used to teach in that classroom, and my class was in the Sandpit River on kayaks. We would go and did some studies and so forth. But we now are in our fifth year. We have partners every day that Michelle and her team have arranged for, and we'll end with a three-day conference at the end of it, May 20th through the 22nd. I appreciate y'all coming down. It's going to be wonderful. She's got an amazing program. Tourism globally, just to segue into that, globally tourism is about a $7 trillion economy. Ecotourism that we're talking about is 25%, and it's the fastest growing. South Carolina tourism is the largest economic sector at $29 billion, and we see it about the same amount, same percentage, and also rapidly growing. And we're getting to this point largely because people see what's going on in the environment, and they want to know what's going on. Here in South Carolina, we've got flooding. We've got coastal erosion, nuisance flooding. Some of our worst flooding, particularly here, comes out of the Gulf, not off the Atlantic, because the storms come up from the Gulf, they go northeast, they drop the water into the watersheds in North Carolina. The water comes down through the rivers, Little Petey and Lumber River, where you see Marion, Sellers, etc. And so, as part of the SC7, every year, we want to be purposeful. 3 Earth Days ago, collectively, we set a world record. We planted 3.5 million trees in one day, 127,000 volunteers across the state. This year, because of good work of Michelle and Abby and her team, we had 140 schools help do cleanups on Earth Day and set a national record with schools involved. So that we tried, I mean, you don't win like the lottery when you get these records, but it does create attention. And litter is particularly important. That's more of a social issue. We do a couple cleanups a month all year long. We work with Keep America Beautiful. Our primary partner is Palmetto Pride. And it's because it's not aesthetics, it's healthcare. And there are a lot of people in our state that are drawing water off of well water. We find pretty much anything that could float out of somebody's carport is in the creeks, in the culverts, in the rivers, and it's leaching into our drinking water supply. And it is a very big deal. So that we want people to understand when they drop plastics usually I have a prop, drop a plastic bottle, throw it out, it comes out of the pickup, comes out of the carport. What we're finding is that plastic, which is a petroleum product, breaks down into microplastics and nanoplastics, which ends up into the food chain. I spend a month every year in the Galapagos doing work on fish tissues, measuring how much of those nanoplastics are going into the fish. Small fish are eaten by the big fish are eaten by people. These are carcinogens. We see at the same time, we see that we're putting about 11 million metric tons of plastic in our oceans every year. We see this meteoric rise of different types of cancers, and these things are not unrelated. So we want people to understand that it's about the health of your family, not just about the aesthetics. And we want to encourage people to keep a bag in their car. Do something about it. If you see it, pick it up. Like, we're not asking you to get out in freezing cold water, which we do a lot, but help us clean it up. So this SC7 is purposeful. So when you ask if you want us to come, that's all you need to say. We want to come. We go some places where their ecotourism is a little bit more advanced and they're less inclined. Where we see enthusiasm, we're kind of like many of us, sir, you probably grew up out on the back porch. Remember that yellow light used to be there and all the bugs flew? We go to that yellow light where we see people that have energy and enthusiasm for what we do. And so for the month that we're out, we will hike about a little over 300 miles. We'll raft to Chattooga. We'll kayak, subject to the weather, maybe not tomorrow, kayak to Edisto River, the longest black river in North America. And we're building a reef off of South Carolina. So what is that about? Every year we, through the nonprofit, train about 100 scuba divers for free. So if anybody in here wants to be a scuba diver, I'll certify you. And all I ask in return is to help us as citizen scientists. We're building a reef off of 24 places that have been permitted by the Corps and by DNR. And why are we building a reef? We're building a reef, one, because a reef is where life begins. And it's also the kidney of the ocean. So if you ask why our water is murky and the Caribbean is crystal clear, it's because they have a living reef and we don't. Now, some of that is the nature of subservice, and some of it is the nature of what's going on. But we're rebuilding it now, and that technology is coming out of coastal Carolina. I just had a call right when I went outside when we were drinking coffee, sat in that rocking chair from people down in Texas. They want to know what we're doing. They want us to come down and build a reef down in the Gulf. We'll start a project in a few months in Ecuador. What we're doing here is being noticed. And it's because we are talking about conservation. We want to be that tent that welcomes people in. And that's what SC7 is doing. That's why I think we've experienced the kind of growth that we had. Yes, we want to come back to Georgetown. I love being here. Went by the new Veterans Park this morning early on the way, stopped in, loved what you did there. Loved, earliest settlement, right? Spanish. People talk about the English, but it was the Spanish here. And, it was amazing history. So just to be clear, under this broad banner of ecotourism, we're talking about health with what you're doing. It's profoundly important. We've got a program, as you know, we talked about it with getting children off the couch and into the outdoors. And what I found is that as many kids as we get a lot of single mothers with that. So we've seen lives changed. We have a program for veterans. We have 403,000 veterans. Getting them out in the outdoors has also been very important. So it's healthcare, it's ecology, and it's cultural. Cultural, I can't imagine a more important place to go on earth than Georgetown. We don't talk about, for a lot of reasons, that people in this state have been embarrassed for good reasons about a part of our history. We had Spanish history. Before that, we had the first Americans, which became part of that settlement when that settlement broke down. We have African history. We have African technology. The irrigation systems that were deployed here were not from Europe. They were from West Africa. There's a great story. There's also a story of shame that we need to deal with that, which is a scar on the soul of this state. Some of the bravest people in the world were those that stood for equal education. That came out of Clarendon County, Somerton. We're doing an honor walk on Friday, marking the 70th anniversary of what should have been called Briggs versus Elliott. They call it Brown versus Ford. And we'll be walking the 9 miles, but culturally we have a lot to talk about. We need to talk about it. And we need to be abrasive and open and eager to tell the tremendous story of Palmetto State. That's what we're trying to do. So it's
All right, y'all, we just had an awesome meeting with the SC7 expedition group here in Georgetown. As you can see, it is a rainy and nasty day, and so we did not do a big nature walk, but we did get to sit down and we got to listen and learn and talk. And let me tell you, I know a lot about our ecology, our wild places. I know a lot about this region, but I learned so much about the technical details, really. The stormwater runoff, how the particles in the stormwater runoff, the microparticles bleed down into the soil, they get into the bacteria, into the fishes, into the bigger fishes. I mean, it's really incredible how our pollution, our trash breaks down and then cycles through the water system and then ends up back in our food and back in us. And there's just so much to our ecology, there's so much to our conservation, there's so much to our good stewardship. And we talked about development. We talked about just all of the threats that we face in South Carolina, keeping this place unique. We talked about our heritage, preserving our heritage in the face of all the changes that come this way. And it was a really awesome talk, a really great educational opportunity. And I'm gonna walk around Front Street now, show you a little bit of this, but y'all listen to Dr. Tom Mulliken. He is a wealth of knowledge and he's got a lot of great info for you. This is Georgetown, South Carolina, the SC7 expedition. And I thank y'all for watching. Y'all have an amazing day. Get outside, even if it's rainy. Enjoy yourselves. Check out the SC7 expedition and also follow Adventures with Marsh if you enjoy these adventures that I take you along on. See y'all later. Y'all have a good one.